Today we are going to learn how to multiply and divide integers. So when we multiply and divide integers, we will have both negatives and positive numbers. So we're going to learn how we know what our product or our quotient is, whether it's positive or negative. So when we multiply a negative times a negative, we have this integer man, I like to call it, that's down here at the bottom of our notes right here. Okay, so this integer man tells us we're going to erase. Sorry, hold on. I'm distracted because our integer man's incorrect. So if y'all can just make marks over there. So our integer man should be a line, and then a positive sign. Okay, so if we are multiplying a negative times a negative, what you do is, we'll draw another one up here. Line, positive. Negative times a negative, if you shade in both the negative parts, we have a positive. So what's left over is the positive. So a negative times a negative gives you a positive product. Okay, so let's do it again for this one. We have another integer man, negative, positive. So here it says a negative times a positive times a positive gives you a negative outcome. So your answer would be negative. Okay, and then another integer man for this one. Okay, so then we have a positive and a negative. So if we shade positive and we shade negative, we have negative left over. So our answer would be negative. And then a positive times a positive doesn't fit on our integer man because that's something that we learn in elementary school. That's the normal that we know. Positive times a positive is always positive. So it's good if you do your integer man before starting your problem because then you don't have to worry about this solution and whether it's negative or positive. So we multiply and divide like normal, and your answer will depend on. So if you notice, if it's the same signs, let's look up here. Negative and a negative is the same sign, and a positive is the same sign. So when we have the same signs, we have a positive outcome. Okay, therefore, when we have opposite signs or different signs, our outcome is negative. Okay, so we could also memorize that as well. So here it says solve the following. And if you notice, I already drew my integer man on these problems. So just looking at the problems here, I have a negative right here and a positive. So if I shade in my negative and I shade in my positive, I have a negative left over. And then now that I know my answer is going to be negative, I can just move on with this. 17 times 5. 5 times 7 is 35. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 3 is 8. So my solution is 85, and in fact, it is negative 85. Okay, so let's move to the next one. A negative, let's draw our integers, our integer man. We have a negative right here and a negative. So negative 8 times negative 8, let's shade in our integer man. Okay, and we have a positive left over. So remember, same signs give us a positive number, and then 8 times 8 is 64. So this equals a positive 64. Okay, then we have modeling. So when we model this first number right here, this first number stands for the number of groups. Okay, so if 4 comes first, how many groups do we have? We have 4 groups. We have 4 groups of what? This second number tells us of what? Okay, so this means that we have 4 groups of -2. So when we start on the number line, we always start at 0 right here. Okay, so we just said we have 4 groups of -2. -2 is moving in the left direction, right? So we would take in one group of -2, that would be 1. Then we have another group of -2, That's 2 groups. Another group, that's 3 groups. And then one more group, that's 4 groups. So where did we land? We landed on -8. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4 groups of -2. So let's just check. What is 4 times 2? That is 8. Okay, and then we have a integer man. We had a +4 and a -2. So it's a -8. So that's right. Okay, so then we have division. So let's draw our integer man. Okay, so with division, it's the same process as finding out if it's positive or negative. Remember, different signs are negative, but in case we don't remember that, we have a +24 with a -6. So our answer is negative. Okay, so then now we get to just divide 24 by 6. How many times does 6 divide into 24? That would be 4 times. 4 times 6 is 24, and that's 0. Our answer is -4. Oops. -4. Okay. Here it's showing us fraction notation as division. So remember, this says negative. So that negative is going to go with that first number. -250 over 5. But also says -250 divided by 5. So if I were to write this in a straight line, I would have -250 divided by 5. So our integer man right here, a negative and a positive gives us a negative quotient. And then so now we can just take 250 and divide it by 5. 5 goes into 25 5 times. 0 left over. Bring down your 0. 5 goes into 0 0 times. So our answer is -50. Okay. And then here we have this one. And it wants you to multiply -3 times -5 and see, is that greater than or less than or equal to 4 times -4. Okay, so I want you to multiply these two together and figure out the answer. You have our integer man here. Okay, and then press play when you have finished. Okay, so for -3 times -5, you should have gotten a +15. And then for 4 times -4, you should have gotten a -16. So 15 is greater than -16. All right, so you have 2 summary questions to answer and the box for questions if you have any additional questions. Don't forget to write in there.